Joining us on the show today is Lori Johnson-Vegas. She is a member of the class of '83. She graduated from Penn State with a Bachelor of Arts in Communications. She also has a PhD in workforce education that she earned in 2022. She is an original founding member of the Penn State Lion Ambassadors. During her time at Penn State, she was very involved with student government, Air Force ROTC, and other organizations. She's the two-time recipient of the Walker Award and also received the 2012 Women of Achievement Award. Lori is the AMI 2023 National Mother of the Year, and she has spent her entire life in relocation mode. Her father and husband were career Air Force, and she is the AFI 2014 Military Spouse of the Year. We're going to get into all of the awards that Lori has won and the impact that she's been able to have through her service. Please welcome to the show, Lori Johnson-Vegas. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Good. What an honor for me to be here with you today.
So, Lori, let's start at the beginning. How'd you become a Penn State and Indy Lion?
Wow. Long, but just for me, it's an awesome story, and having the opportunity to reflect on that just makes me have the goosies a little bit. We were living in New Hampshire, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We were at Pease Air Force Base. As you said, my dad was career military, so I spent my whole life, every 2 to 3 years, we were moving someplace new. And so I was living in New Hampshire at the time, and in high school, always knew that I wanted to be a journalist. That was without a doubt. And so my guidance counselor and I looked at all the schools in the country and all the good journalism schools, and just started kind of narrowing it down. And Penn State was one of them on the East Coast, and then Stanford on the West Coast. And I actually even applied to Princeton. So I was fortunate and blessed that every school I applied to, I was accepted to, which I don't know if that's a blessing or not, because trying to make the decision can sometimes be difficult when you've got, such great schools to choose from. And so my junior year is when I decided that Penn State was where I wanted to be. And I will tell you, looking at Stanford, looking at Penn State, I kind of threw Princeton out a little bit. And so it kind of came East Coast, West Coast. My dad is from Maryland, my mom from New Jersey. So I just felt it would be the right thing to do to stay on the East Coast, just in case my father got orders someplace else. And, I wanted to be close to family. And I will tell you, I'm glad that I did that, because I'd been accepted to Penn State my junior year. So my senior year, I already knew where I was going to school, had early acceptance, felt good about all of it. That was going into my senior year. And my senior year, my dad got orders to Portugal. So while I was at Penn State, my family was in Portugal, and it wasn't like now where you have FaceTime and, you can just pick up the phone and call, or WhatsApp or any of those things. No, I could only see my parents and my family twice a year. The military would pay for you to fly over and see them twice a year. And the phone calls to Portugal were $6 a minute, because that's when we had long distance. So I couldn't call them. If I did call them, I got what's called a courtesy call once a month, a free call for 15 minutes on the Mars line. And the Mars line stands for Military Air Radio Station. So literally, there was someone sitting at a switchboard, and we had 15 minutes. That's all we had. And I would say, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I love you guys. How are you?" Over. And the person at the switchboard would take the little thing and push it over. And then my parents would say whatever they would say, and they'd have to say over. And there were many times when I'm on the other end and it's like silent, because my mom would forget to say over. And the airman on the running the switchboard would say, "Excuse me, ma'am, are you done?" And my mom would say, "Oh my gosh, yes, over." And so a lot of our 15 minutes kind of went by the wayside, because my mom kept forgetting to say over. But that's how I got to Penn State. And, again, just wanting to be a journalist. I actually wanted to be a sports journalist. I wanted to do sports broadcasting, and I knew Penn State was a great school known for their journalism and their broadcasting. So I didn't feel bad about telling Stanford no too. So that's how I got to Penn State.
Excellent. Now, as a student here, you jumped right in, right? Like you, I imagine it'll be a theme for the rest of our conversation and for the rest of your life, right? Jumping right in, getting involved in things. But talk about what you were involved in as a student here at Penn State.
So the other side to that was I started off at a branch campus, and many people don't know that. And the reason I started off at one of the branch campuses was because my family was overseas, and my mother was panicking, thinking that I would be, here I am back in the United States by myself up at this big, huge campus. And knowing that Penn State had Commonwealth campuses, my mother really, really felt it was important that I go to one of the branch campuses that was close to my grandmother. She really wanted me to be near family because of the fact that they were overseas. So I was at the Delaware County campus, which is now Brandywine. So my first 2 years were there, and it worked out perfect because I got to go see my grandmother for the holidays and things like that because I couldn't fly to Portugal. So it worked out really well, and I did. I jumped in right away, and because I didn't want to have free time to think about the fact that I was back in the United States by myself and my family was in a whole nother country. So I did jump right in and got involved in any way that I could, and got involved in the Brandywine campus immediately. Started in student government. I was actually a cheerleader for the 2 years that I was there, and ended up being captain of the cheerleaders and student government. My freshman year there, I was vice president of the student government, and my sophomore year, I was president of the student government. Won several awards there. I was the first person at Penn State to ever win the Walker Award as a freshman. And then I won it again my sophomore year. So two-time Walker Award winner, and won the Penn State Citizenship Award while I was there as well. And, jumping in like that wasn't just something that I did on my own. It was because the team at Penn State, and when I say the team, I mean everyone, the faculty, the administration, from the time that I was at the Commonwealth campus, even when I went up to University Park, everyone just took me in. They realized I was by myself, that my family was living in another country. And so they all took me in, and everybody became, my parents, so to speak. And it was just wonderful that I had so many people wrap their arms around me and just support me in all the things that I was doing. Got involved in COPSCA, which back then was the Council of Branch Campus Student Governments. That's how I got involved in Lion Ambassadors.
That's amazing. It's now CCSG, Commonwealth Campus Student Government. Lori, when you came to Penn State, you mentioned your initial career goal or your area of study was journalism, and in particular sports journalism. I also see that you were involved in Air Force ROTC, which comes with a military obligation post-graduation. So talk a little bit about what your initial career goal was and what you did kind of initially after Penn State.
Sure. So, with that, looking at, again, my goal was and my dream was to be a sports journalist and do some broadcasting. And back then, early 80s, sports journalism was not quite so friendly to women and minorities. So as I started to get more into it and trying to find things and researching and just working with, people in the career field, I realized that probably was not going to be the thing for me. It just was not friendly at that time. And I loved doing the things that I did. In fact, my senior year, my capstone was I did a documentary on Penn State football recruiting, which was amazing because I got to spend time with all the coaches, with Joe Paterno, with the players, and got to know them all really well. And they were so wonderful and so willing to help me with that project. So I did a lot of interviewing, and that was tremendous. And then part of that process was going with the team down to New Orleans, where we won our first national championship. So I was able to do that. But the dream of really trying to just go out there and do sports, I just knew that the profession was not ready. And so that's where my junior year, I changed my mind and thought, you know what, I think I want to go into the military. And I wanted to be reserves. Didn't want to do active duty. I wanted to be reserved so that I could still have another career and still serve my country. So that's how I got involved in ROTC. And then from there went on, and I realized that I wanted to be in human resources. So took the career path to go into human resources and kind of public relations as well, and went back to school and got my master's degree in human resources. And from there, just made a career following my husband around the country. Every time we moved, I had to start a new job, but always stayed within human resources.
This is the People of Penn State. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined today by Dr. Lori Johnson Vegas. She's the 2023 National Mother of the Year. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a second. And while Lori, you may not have been a pioneer for women early in journalism, right? You were and left a legacy here at Penn State by being one of the original founders of Lion Ambassadors. So take us back to those days and kind of what was it like to kind of imagine what Lion Ambassadors could be for Penn State?
Oh, I love talking about this. And, we talk about the original members. So the first group of Lion Ambassadors, but there were 6 of us who were actually the founders. And earlier when I was talking about COPSCA, which is Council of Branch Campus Student Governments, Larry Atwell was our advisor for COPSCA. And there were a couple of us, Vince Verbeck and Dean Boyer, who we were all presidents of our campuses and were very involved in COPSCA in high level roles there. And so and Dean was the first one to graduate and go over to University Park. So while he was there, he was working with Larry on the Council of Branch Campus Student Governments. And so it was my sophomore year where I was the president at our campus. And Dean and Larry approached and said, hey, we've just been given this task of creating this student program, and we need to get it started. And I need to put a task force together, a group of students who can do the things that we need to do to research it, to figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, all of these things. And Larry said, Lori, I want you to be on that. So Vince, Dean, myself, and there were 2 other students who were involved. And Roy Scott, I don't know if anybody remembers Roy Scott, but he was actually the Lion. He was the Nittany Lion. And so he was part of that founding group with us. And then my junior year, when I moved up to University Park, that was when we sat down and really started to put Lion Ambassadors together. And I always make fun because since I was the only female, I was the one taking notes all the time, because we'd be in a meeting and I'd say, is anybody taking notes on this? We need to write these ideas down. And that was when the hub was the dungeon. So it was not like it is now. It was like a basement. It was cold. It was grungy. It was moldy. And we would meet in the dungeon to have these planning meetings on what should this program look like? How many students should we have? What's our mission going to be? What's our vision? And so we would sit in the dungeon and do planning. And in fact, I laugh all the time because somewhere in my garage is a box of napkins. And this is the truth, napkins that have all my notes on it. Because, we would meet down there and then I'd just start grabbing napkins and taking notes of the ideas and the things that we had. But from those meetings in the dungeon, and I think a lot of people don't realize that Lion Ambassadors started because of a group of Commonwealth students, that came out of the Commonwealth. And so that's how it got started. We worked with Larry. We worked with Dr. Eddie, who was the provost at the time. We put a plan in place. We put the mission together, the vision together. We made the recommendation of how many students we felt should be in the program. I worked very hard on the interview guide. What type of questions should we be asking when students come in? What are we looking for? Like, what type of student do we want to have on here? And so, I put the interview guide together and we started the process, and here we are. And I will say, did we think that it was going to be an amazing program? Absolutely, we did. When I look at it now, I don't know if we realized just how amazing Lion Ambassadors would be. Here we are 20 years old back then, putting that program together. But I am so proud of the program, proud of how far it's come, watching it evolve from just a bunch of us students who were really, we were tailgate busters. That's what we would do, in our Lion Ambassador gear. We would go around to all the alumni tailgates and say, hey, and so the word was getting out about the Lion Ambassadors. So we were tailgate busters because the alumni would see us and they go, come on over, get something to eat. Come on. We're like, hey, yeah, let's eat.
So what a tremendous legacy that you and the other 5 founders have left here at Penn State. Lion Ambassadors still going strong here at University Park, and now there are Lion Ambassador groups all over the Commonwealth. And so it's an idea that has caught fire, and they make an impact on all the campuses where they're represented all over the Commonwealth. So Lori, you mentioned that that you have followed your husband Kevin, and Kevin is an adopted Penn Stater, right? I mean,
Oh
he
yeah,
is.
he can sing the alma mater by word.
He definitely married into this, right? You talked about following him around the country for his career. Give us a little bit of an insight into what the life of a military family is like. Where have you lived? What does that mean for spouses and for children, and kind of the entirety of the family?
Yes. Let me just say, since we're on this, that I really want to make sure that I give a huge shout out to our military families. And I say families, not just our servicemen and our servicewomen, but our military families, because they serve too. They may not wear the uniform, but the things they do to keep the home front going, to make sure that our military members who are serving are able to concentrate, to not have distractions, because they're out there protecting us. They're out there fighting for our freedom. They are out there doing the things that they need to do. And if they are worried about what's happening at home and what's going on at home, it's distracting to them, and it takes away from what they're supposed to do. And so I just really want to uplift and edify our military families who work so hard to make sure that that home front stays safe and stays secure, so that our military members can go out and do what they need to do. And when I was growing up, and this is back in the day during Vietnam, because my dad he served in Vietnam as well. And those were tough times, because again, my mother just couldn't pick up the phone and call my dad. He was in Vietnam. And during that time, we actually stayed at my grandmother's house. And so the military back then would move you every 2-3 years whenever they needed you to go somewhere. Money wasn't an issue. If they needed that service member somewhere, you went. I spent first grade in 3 different schools. I started first grade in Turkey. I did the middle of first grade in New Jersey, and I ended first grade in Arkansas. And so that's how it was back then. If you, depending on your career field, your job, if the military needed you, they just picked you up and put you where they needed you. It's not like that anymore. They realize that, one, it costs a lot of money to move a family. So if you're moving them often, it's, that's spending a lot of money. Two, it was having a negative impact on the family unit. Military children, we always talk about how they're at one end of the spectrum or not. You have military children who are very outgoing because they know they have to be, because they're moving someplace new where people already know each other. And so they've got to learn to adapt. Or you have the ones who isolate themselves and say, I'm not going to try to get to know anybody here because we're going to leave in 2 years. And so what's the point? My feelings get hurt every time we move and I have to leave someone behind. And again, back then, there was no FaceTime or Facebook or Twitter or X or any of those things. So the only way that you would keep up with your friends was to write letters, put stamps on the envelope, and mail them and wait for theirs to come back. And so now when families are stationed places, it's 5 years, sometimes more, depending on the career field. But again, it is not an easy thing to move and to make friends. And then you're just saying goodbye. It's a lot easier now, like I said, because you have ways to keep in touch. But back then it wasn't easy. And I've lived in Turkey and, I said before, New Jersey, Arkansas, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Portugal, Japan. My husband was in Germany. So I've had an opportunity to really experience a lot of different countries and in the States. And I will tell you, one of the things that my dad would say anytime they would call the family meeting, and I'd go, oh my gosh, we're about to have a family meeting. That means we're going to move. And that's what it was every time. We need to have a family meeting. And my dad would say to us, we can move to Hawaii and you can hate it. Or we can move to Minot, North Dakota, where there's really nothing there and you can love it. And he'd say, it's all up to you as to where we go and what you do and how you embrace it. So you can love where we are or you can hate where we are. We can't control how you feel. So I took that for what it was. And there were times when I did not want to move because I really made some good friends or I was doing something wonderful at my school. And as soon as we would have that family conference, I was upset. But then I would say, okay, I can't do anything about it. We're here. I can be miserable or I can just embrace it and just get involved in things and just enjoy the time while I'm here. And so that's what I did. And then I tried to get my children to do the same thing as military children, which they did as well. And, I'm very proud of my children and all they've accomplished and the things that they have been in. But it is a task as a military family, not just the relocation aspect of it, but the worry that you have when you are separated from your military member because they are on a remote assignment or an unaccompanied tour, or, I'm using military jargon here, but a TDY or anything like that. You worry. You always worry about that knock on the door. You always worry if they're going to be okay. And so in addition to the physical aspect of the moving and changing schools and things like that, there's the emotional part of it. And even when, trying to be mom and dad, when my husband was in Korea for a year and the boys were very young, I'm trying to be their mother and their father. And then you have to deal with when they come back because the kids were adjusted to me. And so my husband came back, they kind of ignored him. They had been accustomed to asking me, Mom, can I go outside? Mom, can I go here? Mom, can I get this? Can I have a cookie? So when he came back, he's like, am I not sitting here? And that's the other part. We talk about resiliency a lot in the military because the families have to learn to adjust before the deployment or whatever it happens to be, and then again after the military members return. So it's quite an experience.
You mentioned your two sons. Somewhere along the way, it went from you being a Penn Stater to it becoming a Penn State family and kind of creating a second generation of Penn Staters. So talk about your family's connection now to Penn State.
Yeah, and that goes a long way. So not just my children, my sister, there's quite a few years between my sister and I, quite a few. I've always looked at her more like a daughter than a sister. We did not really become sisters until she had children. Up to that point, she was my daughter. So my dad was stationed at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware at the time. And my parents said, okay, she's going to go to an in-state school, either University of Delaware or Delaware State. And I'm like, wait, what? And they said, yeah, it's cheaper. It's cheaper if she goes to an in-state school so she can stay right here in Delaware. And I was like, oh, my sister is not going anyplace else but Penn State. And my parents were like, well, that's out-of-state tuition. She's not used, so the scholarships might not be there. And I said, okay, let's make a deal. And I sat down with my parents and I said, look, if you all pay for her tuition, I will pay for everything else. I will pay for everything else if you just take care of tuition. So that's what happened. My sister went to Penn State. Her senior year, she did an internship in the Human Resources Department. They loved her. So when everybody else was at graduation with things on their hats, will work for food, hire me, sister had a job. She didn't have to move. She was right there at Penn State. And so that's where she's been up until a couple of years ago when my mom got sick. And so now she's moved to Delaware. But all three of my two nephews and my niece, all three of her children were born right there at Nittany Hospital and went to school there. And then they've obviously moved away. And so they've graduated from schools down here. The youngest one hasn't yet, but the oldest has, and then my niece. So now we've continued that tradition because my niece, who just graduated in June, in a couple months or a couple weeks, she's going to be right up there at University Park. Yay! We are. So it has been, my children went there, my sister went there, now her children are there. So this is, we are truly a Penn State family.
That's amazing. Lori, you have been recognized in so many different ways. Let me go back to this list. The two-time Walker Award recipient, Woman of Achievement Award, the AFI Military Spouse of the Year, the AMI 2023 Mother of the Year, and now just recently, the most recent honor. Am I allowed to break the news here on the podcast?
You will be the first one to announce it publicly.
Just named the list of 50 most influential women in the state of Oklahoma.
Yes.
What does all this recognition mean to you?
And it's kind of funny because I say I'm just me. And I did, one of the local TV stations interviewed me because as Mother of the Year, I got to represent the United States at the United Nations in April, and it was an incredible experience. And I'm a goal setter, so I set goals for myself, and I have bucket lists, and I have all these things that I want to do, during my time here on Earth. Nowhere on my goal sheet or in my bucket list is anything that says be a delegate for the United States at the United Nations. Wait, what? And so I got to do that, and it was just an amazing and an incredible experience. And so these acolytes that I get are not because they're not on my goal sheet or on my bucket list. There are so many wonderful people in my life who believe in me, who see probably things in me that I don't see in myself. And so they put me up for these awards. And I don't find out about it until later on. And then sometimes, believe it or not, I have not denied, but just said, yeah, somebody else should have this. And then I get guilted. I get guilted because there was one award that I was up for, and you had to, provide all this information and this background, fill all this paperwork. And I was like, no, somebody else can win that award and, enjoy it. And so then, someone was like, well, if you took the time to write someone up because you believed in them and you really felt like they deserved recognition, and you wrote this big award up, and then they said, oh, yeah, thanks, but no thanks, how would that make you feel? And I was like, are you serious? Are you really going to guilt me like that? Because that's what happened. I turned one down, and I turned the nomination down, and someone said, you're making that person feel really bad. So it's because of just the type of people who are in my life who, I guess, again, they see something in me and they think that I deserve recognition. And so they put me in for all these different awards, and I get them.
So, Lori,
I don't know what else to say.
yeah. So, Lori, the National Mother of the Year, it almost seemed like, you and I are friends, right? I see your comings and goings on Facebook, right? It almost seemed like it was a year-long kind of, that you were like the year-long representative, almost as if you would imagine like Miss America or Miss USA, right?
Yes.
What was that experience like? What were the opportunities that you had to represent mothers around the nation?
And, Paul, it's one of the things that they shared with me when I said, okay, we're going to be selecting the 2024 soon. And so my time is up, and thank you. I appreciate everyone so much. And they were like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm, trying to prepare my farewell speech, and, I've done my reign. And they were like, you were the 88th National Mother of the Year. No one is ever going to be the 88th National Mother of the Year. That is your title for the rest of your life. And people are always going to continue to request the 88th National Mother of the Year to come to their events. In fact, this weekend, and the timing of this was just worked out perfect. On Saturday, I am the guest speaker as National Mother of the Year at a women's event here in Delaware. And I actually have appearances that are already on the calendar through February of next year as the National Mother of the Year. I'm speaking at Rotaries, I'm speaking at, women's events, I'm, just, cutting ribbons and just doing all kinds of things like that. So, from what I understand, and I'm realizing now that it's not just a one-year thing. It is truly for the rest of my life. And you brought up Miss America and Miss USA and things like that. And somebody said, just think about it. How many times does Miss America, 1967 get asked to speak at things? People like to have people do that, and I think I started sharing earlier when I was interviewed by one of the local stations. The gentleman who was interviewing me started off saying, I feel like I am in the presence of celebrity. And I was like, no, I'm just Lori. I promise you, I'm just Lori. And he was like, no, I really feel like I'm in the presence of, greatness. And that's how he started off the interview. And I said, I promise I'm just Lori. So there are times when I am just truly humbled. And, when we're out in public or we're doing things and everybody wants a selfie with me or they want my autograph. And there are times when I just want to go, I'm just Lori. I'll take a hug, just give me a hug or a high five. I'm good.
Lori, when you go around to these numerous appearances that you make as kind of the representative of mothers all over the United States, what is your message? What is it that you hope to get across at these events? What is it that you represent?
So I really focus. There's two things that I focus on. One, I created a word that I use often, and that is the word nervageous. And a whole nother podcast, Paul, you call me and we can do a podcast on
Right.
nervageous. But it's really about having the nerve to make a decision and then having the courage to act on that decision. And many times we all say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And we get our nerve up and then we go, ooh, I'm a little afraid to do that. And so we talk about, okay, we make these decisions. Well, let's be courageous enough to do something with them. So that's how I came up with the word nervageous. It's copywritten, it's trademarked. And so I spend a lot of time talking about that, especially to mothers, because there are times when we have to take those deep breaths, put our shoulders back, put our chin up and handle it. And there are lots of things that we have to handle. In addition to that, I really talk to our moms about the importance of what I call hashtag smile, giggle, laugh. So a lot like this weekend, my presentation is about smile, giggle, laugh. And we do the hashtag smile, giggle, laugh. That there are times in our lives, especially as mothers, where we forget about self-care. We know we've got to take care of our family. We put all of our time, our energy, and our effort into taking care of our family. And we know from when you're on a plane, you put the mask on you first, because if you're sitting next to someone who can't help themselves and you're passed out, well, that nobody's helping anybody. So we talk about the importance of putting the mask on you first. And I talk to them about taking away that guilt, because as mothers, we often feel guilty when we stop something for our family because we want to take care of us. We want to go get a mani-pedi, or we want to treat ourselves to, going out to, grab a cup of coffee, and we have this guilt. And so I'm trying to let mothers know that it is okay to take care of you, because when you take care of you, you're in a better state of mind mentally, you feel better physically, and you can better take care of your family. You're not out there grouchy, upset, and things don't get to you as easy as when you are able to smile, giggle, and laugh. So I do a whole exercise on smile, giggle, laugh. I'm a self-proclaimed gelotologist. For those of you who don't know, look it up. It's someone who studies the impact of humor and laughter on the physical body and the mental body. So I've spent many years studying gelotology and what it does. And so, I let them know that there are times when things happen, and at the time they're happening, we feel like, oh my gosh, this is awful. But I guarantee you, 5-6 years down the road, when you're sitting with your family and you're talking about the time when your child was at the commissary or at the grocery store and the lady had a gold tooth, and your child tells everybody, your 3-year-old tells everybody that the lady has bad teeth, she doesn't brush her teeth, or when you're one of your children locks themselves in the bathroom at the hotel, and now you have to have all the hotel people come, and there are different things that at the time they're happening, it feels like the end of the world. But later on, when you sit down as a family and you start talking about those moments, those embarrassing moments, or those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that, or that just happened. The laughter that happens from that is tremendous. We have a family list. We literally have a list of the things that we've done, and we're on the honor system in our family. So if you've done something and it needs to be on that list, we call a conference call. And we all get on the phone and the person says, okay, I did blah, 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 or this just happened to me. And we go, that's not list worthy. Or we go, oh my gosh, that's number 5. That's number 5. You just surpassed whatever. And then when we get together during the holidays, we look at the list and we start arguing that, oh, this should really be number 2. No, this should be number 10. And it's all things that happened years ago where at the moment that they were happening, we were like, it was like the end of the world. And so now we have the opportunity to laugh at those things. But the way your body feels when you smile, when you think of something that just, you close your eyes and you just think of something and it makes you smile, there's warm feelings that happen. And, we talk about the chemicals that get released in our body when we're stressed and what it does to us. Well, there are positive chemicals that get released into our body when we smile, when we think of things that make us smile, when we think of things that make us giggle, and when we think of things that make us laugh. And our body physically, like when we smile, just kind of smile, our shoulders are back. But when you start to giggle, your shoulders move a little bit, your body starts to move. But when you laugh, you're like, ah, and everybody, slapping their hand, their hands on their knees. And there's so many positive things that come from being able to smile, giggle, laugh. So as I've been going around the country, meeting with mothers and women, and not just them, like I'm meeting with a Rotary Club at the end of the month down in Norman, Oklahoma, and that it has women and men there. And I'm talking about smile, giggle, laugh. So that's kind of been my message as I've been going around, as Mother of the Year, is letting people know it's okay to have some self-care, and it is absolutely okay to smile, giggle, and laugh and be nervaceous. Uh-oh, Paul, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
This is the People of Penn State. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined by Dr. Lori Johnson Vegas. She's the 2023 National Mother of the Year. Well, Lori, at the end of each podcast, we like to have a little bit of fun with some quick hitter questions. So I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you, and you just kind of share with the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
All right. Your favorite class at Penn State?
Oh, my favorite class at Penn State? Meteorology. Oh, I loved meteorology. Learning about the weather. Yeah, that was my favorite class.
If you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be and why?
Shaq.
Shaq.
Shaquille O'Neal. He is funny, and Shaquille O'Neal has a doctorate. A lot of people don't know that, but he went back to school and he got his doctorate. And with everything going on in his life, the way he's handled things, and you have people on SNL and everybody makes fun of how he talks, and he's just a big guy. I just think he is so funny, and I think he's amazing because he doesn't let his fame get in the way of his goals and the things that he wants to do. So I would want to have, sit down and have dinner with Shaq.
He is a smart businessman, often underestimated, but he's laughing all the way to the bank, right?
You better believe it.
Your most unusual "we are" moment.
Shaq, call me, Shaq.
How about your most unusual "we are" moment? The place where you saw a Penn Stater and yelled "we are," or they recognized you as a Penn Stater and it caught you by surprise?
Going through the St. Louis airport in Missouri, there was a time when I was on the little walkway thing and somebody else was, and I yelled out, "We are," and they didn't respond. And so I got off of the thing and I walked all the way. And I mean, I was like in their face, "We are." And so I got off and I walked all the way around to catch them as we're getting off of theirs. And I looked at them and I said, "We are." And they looked at me and I said, "Did you go to Penn State?" And they were like, "Yes," because they had on Penn State. And I said, "The proper response to 'we are' is Penn State." And he said, "Oh, Penn State. What world?"
How about your favorite Penn State?
He was there for that. He was like, I said, "I don't know what's going on."
That's funny. How about your favorite Penn State sport?
Oh, football. Definitely football. One of my favorite things about Penn State football is I got tossed 14 times in the air after Jordan Norwood's touchdown against Michigan State in the fourth quarter. So I literally, how they do the air thing, yeah. And they told me I was the first mom in the history of Beaver Stadium to do that.
How about your favorite flavor of creamery ice cream?
What's the coffee one called? Oh my gosh, I'm like
WPSU coffee break.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. Yes, but it used to be WPSX coffee,
right?
And now it's WPSU coffee. Yes.
Lori, we want to thank you for joining us on the People of Penn State. It's when Penn Staters like you allow us to share your story that swells thy fame of dear old state, and for that we're truly grateful.
Oh, what an incredible honor and pleasure for me to be here with you, Paul. This was fun. We need to do it again.
Absolutely, and we'll catch up soon. I also want to thank our producer, Vincent Longaro, our guest relations coordinator, Abby Clark, for all the work that they do behind the scenes to bring these great stories of Penn Staters doing good in their community to you. If you like this episode, I hope that you'll subscribe to the People of Penn State podcast in your favorite podcast app of choice. And while you're there, go ahead and give us a rating, drop us a review. It really helps us to spread the word to other Penn Staters. If you are a member of the Penn State Alumni Association, thank you for your support. And if you're not a member, what are you waiting for? Go to our website at alumni.psu.edu, and you too can become a member of the world's largest alumni association. Thanks again for listening and for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are